I welcome everybody to the podcast. This is your host, the Prince of Fresh Air himself, Mr. Days Off Percy, joining by the biggest fruitcake of them all, Mr. White Privilege himself, El Don Cappuccino. What's up?
We got to work on my branding. I never agreed to that.
I think we all agree that's a fair assessment. Oh man, so this podcast, we're gonna be talking about the much debated epidemic, aka COVID-19. A lot of theories and a lot of discussion to be had about this. So we're gonna kick this off with a bang. I don't like to keep people snoring, so we're gonna just get right into it. Now, do you think this is a government conspiracy? Because this is something that's still going on despite how many cases and deaths we've gotten.
No, Percy, it's not a government conspiracy. It's not a Chinese conspiracy. Anyone who believes this is anything other than a guy eating a undercooked bat and then causing a global pandemic is an idiot. But with that being said, I have an article here online on my computer here that says it debunks COVID-19 theory. So I kind of want to go through all these and get your take on it before I tell you why they're not actually true.
Yeah, shoot me. Let's hear it.
All right. So first of all, we have the first conspiracy theory is that COVID-19 escaped from a Chinese lab. So people think that the Wuhan, the city where this originated, has China's only level 4 biolaboratory, which is the highest security biolaboratory you can have. And it says they've been studying the coronaviruses for a long time and that it leaked out and started infecting people and it spread across the world.
Yeah, I heard something similar about that, but someone was saying, you might mention it, but someone was saying that it all started through cell phone carriers and all this nonsense.
Right. Let me see if that's one of these here. Oh yeah, there it is.
Of course.
So just for that first one, for people that believe that it leaked out of a Chinese lab, I mentioned the level 4. The level 4 is the highest security biolab that is standard by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, I think. There is no level 5, so level 4 is the best of the best. So the chance of viruses escaping the level 4 environment are super duper low. And that's that for that one.
Oh god, the most people come up with the most outrageous ways to debunk something that's obviously killing people.
Mm-hmm. When we just tried to record this the first time and we ended it, you brought up that people think it was a conspiracy by our government to make people stay home and lock us down and control us. You know, and I said before, I'll say it again now, that it's not exactly lawful and constitutional for governors to order their states to close down for commerce, but I see the merit of it in this situation since it was so infectious and so deadly. So I was okay with it at the time, and now that we're 3 months later, basically, it's getting old. I'm glad I'm back to work now, but a lot of people still aren't. But it was a warranted response, I think, to what's going on. So it's not a conspiracy. It's just it was a good idea.
Yeah, so this whole thing, the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because there was a video I was watching. It was the pro stay-at-home people and then anti-stay-at-home people. And one of the things that one of the ladies was saying in the video was that, you know, we're innocent to prove it guilty, and that the government shouldn't be making us stay at home, and that the reason why there's not a lot of cases is because people are locked up at home. But that's exactly what it was designed to do, to stop the spreading. So my whole thing is that people understand that, you know, the curve is, we're getting a handle on COVID, but they don't see why. Obviously, if people stay home, it can't spread. And so does it suck that people have to stay home and can't really go anywhere? Absolutely. I mean, people are very social creatures, but we also have to understand that, you know, people are dying from this. It's not like people are just, you know, getting a sickness, a common cold, and then recovering tomorrow. People are dying from this. People are suffering life-threatening, health issues from this. and people have to be aware of that.
Yeah, it wasn't legal, I think, but it was definitely for the greater good, and for that, I'm willing to overlook that personally.
Oh, absolutely, and it sucks that I have to say this, but for a lot of people who just think this is a way for the government to control us, it's one of those things where the people who think like that are the ones that just want to go to the bar all the time, who just want to go to the beach, and it sucks, but it's going to take someone in their family to get sick or die from it for them to take it seriously.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, look at that pastor. This is hilarious, and it sucks that it happened, but I think we talked about the Virginia pastor who was, when this first started, he was saying, "Oh, the pandemic is nonsense, and you can't stop the Lord's word."
Oh my God, yes, that video is hilarious.
Oh, it's freaking hilarious. So for people who don't know, there was a pastor from Virginia, where the government, the state of Virginia told him he has to close down his church, and he went on this whole tirade that you can't stop God's word, and God is going to strike you down, and the pandemic can't stop him. And then a month later, he dies from COVID. It's sad, but it's hilarious that they try to protect you from the very thing that killed you, and now the family is sad, but now the family is like, all right, you got to take it seriously. Mm-hmm. But why does it have to take someone to die for you to take it seriously?
Because I don't get how people are, man. They until it affects them. I know I'm the same way. I didn't take this seriously too until I saw the terminal rate of the elderly that got this. Because my parents are under 60. They're considered old, I guess, by the government technically, but they're not super at risk to die from this. It's my grandparents that I'm most worried about. So if something happened to them, I wouldn't forgive myself for not trying to help them out. They go out every week and they do their food shopping, but they mostly stay at home. They come over here to drop off pizza once a week. They go over to hang out with my little cousins over a couple towns over once a week. But they're socially distant. They wear their masks and their gloves. So it's scary for, I think, those of us that have elderly family members. For me, if I got it, it's just a flu, basically. It's a bad flu, and it's not going to kill me. It's not going to kill you. But then it would give it to my parents, and I would hate to have them miserable. And then I could possibly transmit to my grandparents or to our neighbors or other people. So for us to all be staying at home and taking one for the greater good of humanity, it's got to be done.
Yeah, it's for me, I'm at risk too, and so I was born with asthma. So for me, it's I have to tell people stay away from me because I might enjoy your company, but I don't know where you've been at. I don't know if you got it. And the last thing I want to do is die in the middle of my sleep. I'm 240 pounds of twisted on sex appeal. I have a lot of things to do in life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. Sit there and collect unemployment.
Hey, that's the good thing about this pandemic. I'm getting paid, baby. Let me shut up. I want the FBI to find out. We're gonna keep that on the rest. But it's the pandemic is one of those things where a lot of people still think this is a joke. They treat it as a joke, and they just think it's a way for the government to control them. And I think this is absolutely bonkers that people still think this, despite the death rate. Mm-hmm. The symptoms of it. There was a Broadway star who ended up losing one of his legs and being in the hospital for over a month and a half, and he was like 33, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, we're young and dumb, but you don't know. A lot of people don't know their health conditions. They don't know if they have a history of asthma in their family, or if they have some type of gene that, mm-hmm. if the coronavirus triggers it, it could possibly, end their life. And so I think people should take it more seriously and stop treating it as a joke.
Yeah, now as we get closer and closer to the end of this whole lockdown, New York Phase 2, I think, reopens tomorrow, as long as nothing goes wrong between now and then. The only thing I'm concerned about now is that with all the uptick in the protests and riots and stuff, that it's going to spike again, and we're going to be right back where we started in March. That's my only real fear now anymore, because the numbers are back down. Hospitalizations are way down. Deaths are down. Things are getting back to normal slowly but surely.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I don't go to protests, because people aren't. I understand people don't want to wear masks everywhere and stuff, mm-hmm. but you're in a group of like thousands and you don't even have a mask on and people are coughing. It's funny, even without the protest. I remember one time I was going to get some food and I saw a dude wearing a face mask, but it was on his chin, wasn't even covering his mouth. And he was just sitting there coughing his mind out. And it's just like, isn't it funny? Like, now a cough could warrant a ass whooping from people.
Yeah, if I saw someone doing that, if I was in a deli or something and someone was coughing their ass off without a mask on, I think I'd pull them outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious to think, but it's crazy how much a cough could do so much damage. And but one of the things I want to talk about, so I did like this interview for a show, and one of the things they talked about was, or one of the questions rather was, whose fault is it to blame for the lack of emergency? The people or the government? What do you think?
For lack of like emergency response to this? Well, it's gotta be the government for sure. I mean, the government gonna control distribution for all this stuff when we run out for it. Put protocols in place for states to deal with this stuff. You know, set up additional hospitalizations, National Guard stuff, whatever it takes. I think it all falls on the government personally.
Yeah, it's I do agree the government has to take a lot of the responsibility, but also I will also say the people have some responsibility.
Definitely.
All of us, because we all thought it was a joke. We heard about this in I think January, and nobody took it seriously. And it's crazy. I think the first death was in January, late January, if I'm not mistaken, in Florida, or no, it was actually Southern California, and it's just one of those things where I think we all should be blamed. And I see people blaming Trump. That's the biggest issue I have is people just, it's Trump's fault. It's his fault. You know, people are dying and, you know, and it's sad that people would just finger point instead of admitting that we all should have, taken serious precautions when it first started.
Now that you say that, I agree with you. I should have thought that before I said the government, because it's definitely both faults, the government and the people. I definitely didn't take it seriously when it first started. Before masks were made mandatory by Cuomo here in New York, I was at a deli without a mask on, and an old lady was there with the mask on. And she said, "Where's your mask?" I said, "I don't need a mask. I'm young. Nothing's going to happen to me." And that was until then I said it exploded, and then I said, "Oh, this is actually something super serious. Like, we all got to, take care. It takes one person to not take care of themselves and others for it to, start affecting you and your family." And
yeah, like the Florida spring breakers.
Yeah, oh my God, don't get me start on those freaking idiots either.
Isn't it crazy that they all now regret their decision?
Spring breakers, it's the churches that stayed open. It's the people that kept going to work regardless. People, even here in New York, we had a bar here on Long Island called the Double and Deck, I think, in Patchogue, that was getting around the lockdown because they sell food, so they do pickup. So you can walk in there and order food, and you're allowed to wait inside at the bar where you can order drinks. So they had like 60 people in there that were, quote unquote, waiting for their food, sitting at the bar and drinking.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you mentioned that, because I know in LA a lot of people didn't care because it's harder to enforce a lot of rules because LA's so spread out. But I remember like when the whole thing started, when they were saying, all right, people got to stay at home and only business have to do pickup or takeout, I should say. A lot of business didn't care. It was a happy hour all day, every day, and it took the government to shut them down, to come in and, all right, we're going to give you a fine now because you didn't listen. And then now you have people mad at the government, but they didn't follow the rules. It's crazy. But it leads me to my another question. Another question I ran into, and something that we talk about, and this ties into racism a little bit. Something I noticed, but
hang on, shameless plug. If you didn't listen to our last episode about George Floyd, go listen to that too. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sure they have listened to it, right, people? No, yeah, go listen to that. That's a very good conversation we had, especially as a black man and a white man as well. Different perspective, and we just unfiltered, unscripted, and we had a good time with that. But anyway, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you blame the Chinese? for this?
I don't see how you could really not blame the Chinese. I mean, I blame the Chinese for starting it. I blame them for letting it spread as much as it did. And then once it got out of China, it's kind of all bets are off. But I blame the one dude in Wuhan who ate an uncooked bat, like learned how to cook food. And then the Chinese government really not doing a whole lot to put the kibosh on it obviously led to it spreading through out of China and then all across the world. So it's definitely China's fault. And just while we're talking,
Right.
when we mentioned conspiracy theories before, the number one thing is that China says they have no cases. That is absolute bullshit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Before I get into the racism discussion, one thing I did want to talk about was, I remember there was a doctor. I can't remember her. I think it was him or her, but there was a doctor who in December came out and did a whole thing about that. He was. They mentioned that COVID is a real thing and it's going to be spreading and it's going to cause a worldwide panic. And what happened when that happened? They were never to be found. Trying to act like it was never said, and they disappeared off the face of the earth. Ended up passing away, I think, from COVID at some point. But they kept it a secret, and they try to act like it wasn't a thing, and they never really publicly acknowledged it until our president kind of forced the hand, and now we have problems with China because of that.
The thing is, we've had problems with China long before this happened. This just hasn't helped.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm not really into like the whole political side of things, but it's just the pandemic thing. I realized was a big thing was that they were withholding information, they're shutting people down, and I mean this was a renowned scientist, or doctor, who has some really valuable information, and look what happened. Not only were they right, but now people are dying from something that probably could have been prevented months ago before, the stay-at-home.
I realize that China's got 1 billion people or so, 2 billion people, whatever it may be. But they could easily, they're a communist country. They have total authoritarian control over it. They could have forced people to stay home and stop the spread, and we would have never known. But instead, they pushed it under the rug. They let it spread like wildfire, and now it's all across the world. Italy's had it bad. We have it the worst. So it's definitely all their fault. They could have done a lot more. But at the same time, let's finish this. At the same time, our government could have done more, and also our people could have done more too to help kind of make it not as bad as it got. But that didn't happen, and now here we are 3 months later.
Exactly. And so this leads to my next question for you. Do you think this pandemic not created, but it invited racism
towards who?
The Chinese.
So I definitely think that the less informed people were definitely prejudiced against the Chinese at the start of this whole thing. People that were had no idea about how basic biology works, that every Chinese person doesn't have the virus just because they're Chinese, how it was only in China at the time. The thing with that also that comes with that is a double-edged sword, because all the Chinese restaurants, at least around here, closed because they still have relatives in China and they knew how bad it was getting over there. So they just shut down and to prepare for it to come here and wreak havoc here. What I wish that some of those business owners, the Chinese food store owners, had reached out about that and told people that, hey, this is what really was going on in China, and not that they have no cases, blah blah. Would have been nice, but I don't fault them for it at all. I understand, but people were definitely, I think, more racist towards Chinese people after this. I went on my way to go eat Chinese at least once a week, just to try to support them a little bit.
Right. Yeah. It's so for me, I live right next to Chinatown, in LA downtown, and you see it. My neighbors are Chinese, and it's right. Literally, I can walk to Chinatown in 5 minutes, and you see the racism that they get, and it's heartbreaking. People don't see it as racism, but it is. Making fun of old Chinese people and saying that your people are disgusting. You're the reason why you're killing our kind, and go back to China. and just calling them a bunch of racist names and blaming them for something that was out of control. But I think it started like this whole racism towards the Asian culture that honestly wasn't really warranted, and it brings me to, I remember I went to a vape shop who has a Chinese lady working there, and a dude came in and he was pissed about something, but he said to the Chinese lady, don't even look at me, don't even breathe at me, because if you do, it's going to be problems. And it was just like, it's kind of sad to see that people don't see what they're doing. They're hurting people's feelings, and they're being racist without even realizing it.
Yeah, it definitely opened the door for a lot more racism towards the Chinese people, and I mean Asians in general. I mean, how many people do you know that can tell different Asian nationalities just by looking at them? Like you got Chinese people, Japanese people, Koreans, the Thailand, whatever, stuff like that. Vietnamese people that are racist against Chinese people were being racist towards all the different Asian cultures because they have no idea that they're all different. And it sucks that people are so uneducated about biology, basically, that it got to that point.
Yeah, let me a little quick story. I remember in March, right before I took my leave of absence, I was at work. I work at a fast food casual spot, and two of the workers are, one is Filipino and the other one is half Asian, half Filipino, half Japanese. And we were doing our work. Nobody really had a problem. We wore face masks and gloves, and one lady came in and she made a scene. She's seen them, and she said, "I don't want them touching my food. They're a bunch of snakes, and why are they working here? They should get deported back to China. I don't want to get sick." And she was yelling at people to stop eating the food and kick them out. And it was just, I mean, it's, again, like you said, a lot of people don't know how to tell the difference between different Asian cultures. A Filipino is not Chinese, but for a lot of people, everybody is just the same thing.
Everyone with slanty or weird eyes is Chinese automatically.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of it too. I thought he was Chinese, and then he said, "No, I'm Filipino," and I was just another educational thing for me. But yeah, a lot of racism kind of just took off into another direction.
Thankfully, here I didn't see too much of it that I can remember. Like I said, I was trying to go to Chinese food spots once, twice a week just to try to support them until they all closed. But it comes with the territory too that people are here still so stupid, as we talked about a couple hours ago, that it still comes to racism that's widespread.
Right. I like to get into the controversial stuff, so I'm gonna ask you a question. I know you're a fan of his. I would say I'm a fan of his too. But do you think Trump has done a good job, or the government? But it seems like a lot of people are targeting Trump about this.
Yeah.
I want to just mention him.
Every time Donald Trump tries to do something, he gets targeted by people. I don't think he did a great job. I think he did an okay enough job that he's getting us through this. But at the same time, it falls down to the states to deal with this sort of thing with the lockdowns and whatnot. Because anything that's not any power in the Constitution that's not granted to the federal government explicitly, it's the state's thing to do. The state takes ownership of that responsibility for their state. So in the Constitution, right. I don't think there's any mention of pandemics and what to do in that case. So it fell down to the states mostly, I believe, to take care of, planning and executing their plans to bring in hospitals and move workers around and whatnot. But I think Trump did a fine enough job. He did an okay job. He wasn't great. He wasn't stellar. But the only thing he's really been stellar in my eyes is tweeting a lot and making the economy flourish.
Oh, exactly. And it sucks that people are blinded with this hatred. And then the first episode I did, I talked about why I don't get involved with politics, and it comes and people just their disdain with trumps the fact that they realize they don't see that he's been trying to help. And this comes down to, I remember when the first stay at home thing started, one of the biggest issues that people had was, oh, Trump can't force states to do this, and states are speaking out against him. Oh, you can't force us to close, you can't force us to implement these rules and stuff. And then what happened? He let them do it, and then they blamed Trump for not having for not being authoritative enough. It's just like the man can't
That's
win.
the thing. Over here, we were lucky enough to have the New York governor Cuomo and then New Jersey and also Connecticut's governor kind of team up and put in place regulations for all three of these states, since they're in such close proximity to each other. They didn't want to have bars open in Connecticut but closed in New York, where people in New York could just drive to Connecticut across the state border and go to a bar, right? Problem with the thing I have with Trump is that we could have created a much more national. I mean, it's really, honestly, no, never mind. It was more of a state problem anyway, because not all states were hit, as hard as the Northeast was, and as hard as Florida was, and as hard as Texas and California were. So I think Cuomo did a fine enough job doing what he did. And then the idea for him to team up with Jersey and Connecticut was also a good idea as well, just to prevent people from hopping borders just to go do something they couldn't do in their own state.
Right. And you mentioned Florida. Florida, unfortunately, is one of those states where I'm not surprised and I have no sympathy for, because they just didn't give a rat's ass about anything. They didn't follow any of the rules. They didn't practice social distancing. It took the freaking the mayor a month and a half to finally close the beaches. It was just a lack of hustle. And then what happens is, and politics aside, whether you hate Trump or not, what happens is, the mayor didn't enforce these rules, and then when the cases start going up, who did they blame? Not the mayor.
Yep.
They went straight to, Trump is the reason why this is all started. And that's my biggest issue with this whole thing, is that people aren't taking responsibility for their actions. What they're doing is they blame Trump for everything and try to take the blame off themselves. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with this, is that if people would have taken more accountability, granted, people unfortunately still might have died and cases still would have, went up, of course, but it wouldn't be a significant spike the way it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm trying to pull up Florida's numbers here real quick. Florida, so they had just under 65,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, and they've had 2,700 deaths, a little over 2,700. Here in New York, let's see. New York, we have. No, this is all like general New York. Let's see. Can I get like a New York? So, New York City alone has 200,000 cases. So in Florida, it's not as big a deal as it is here. To be honest with you, I mean, it's still a big deal that at the beginning they didn't take it super seriously, but now they can start reopening and they won't have a huge fear of having another spike. Here it's different because there's so many more people. The population is so much more dense, as you know from New York City, that it's way easier to spread.
Yeah.
So Florida, it's like the less populous states, I understand not having as strict lockdowns or any lockdowns at all even. So I have no problem with that. It's just that it's those states, New York, California, Texas, that have to be more careful now when they open back up. Illinois looks like it's actually. Illinois got 128,000 confirmed cases too. Wow, that's crazy.
Jesus. Yeah, like you said, like you said earlier, I wonder what the case is going to be like. When protesters start dying down a little bit. Whether it's going to skyrocket, because I know the health organizations are projecting another wave later this year, possibly early next year. And so because what's going to happen is a lot of these states, Florida, they're reopening way too early, just reopening everything way too soon. And then what's going to happen is, cases are going to go back up, because what's going to happen? Everybody's going to go straight to the bars, to the beaches, to the public parks. And I get it. I mean, everybody wants to get out. But what happens is, obviously you can't keep everybody locked up in the house all day, every day. But the case is going to go right back up because people going to go right back outside, not doing social distancing, not wearing face masks, and then we're going to be stuck at home again. And then, you know, people going to be upset with Trump again.
And there's nothing he can do. I mean, there's nothing he can do anymore about it, really, that I think hasn't already been done. I mean, the numbers are now starting to get back under control again, which is good. It's just trying to keep them down now, and that's not going to be possible if these people, all the people rioting and protesting, don't wear their masks. But obviously they're not to blame. I get it, but there's still a ways to go to get out of this. Like, this is going to change, I think, the very fabric of how we go about our day-to-day lives for the next probably year or so. Like, I can talk about personal experience now. My work, I work for the Ducks, the baseball team. So we are prepared, not officially to open the season yet, but we're trying to get approval to open the season with 25% capacity in our ballpark, which would be about 1,500 people per game. Masks for everyone. All employees will have to wear masks and gloves. We'll get our temperatures checked before we even enter the ballpark. A lot of social distancing, between families and groups, whatever. It's going to be a giant pain in the ass to pull off and to have every night. But everywhere is not just stadiums and arenas are going to have these guidelines now to use until the fear is gone. So for at least probably the year, we're going to have to wear masks in businesses and gloves somewhere. And, it's going to be a real pain in the ass for everybody. But it's the fear that people are still going to have for the next while, at least.
Yeah, until the vaccine starts up or is in effect. And, as you talk about work, for me, being an actor and having an agent and stuff is one of those things where it's affecting a lot of people because, just a little, breakdown, from January to like March, it's a pilot season. And, right now people are casting for like TV shows and stuff. But because of the pandemic, everything is shut down. Productions are not trying to reopen till July the earliest. And it's going to change the landscape because, casting directors and producers, they see, thousands of people weekly. And so, I'm curious about what the landscape is because now what's going to happen with auditions or, is everything going to be virtual? Is travel is another thing, international travel. A lot of commercials filmed outside of the United States. What's going to happen with that? What's going to happen with budgets? Because, money has been coming in. A lot of movies have been put on hold from releasing. A lot of productions have halted. So it's one of those things that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but how do you think it's impacted you daily in your everyday life? And, how do you go about interacting with people now? Do you do the fist bump? Do you stay away?
So before this
what do you do?
All got locked down, we had our job fair at the ballpark where we bring people to hire for game day and like interview them and whatnot. So this was probably March 9th, I think, or March 2nd, something like that. So we had a ton of people come to the ballpark, sitting down in our tight press box with people, across the table. And we were told to elbow bump them. That no handshakes, no fist bumps, elbow bumps. So, you stick your elbow out and they bump elbows with you. And then the next week, the pandemic hit, like it blew up, and then we had the office was closed, whatever. So I was home until about 2 weeks ago now, 2.5 weeks ago, when I got called back in to start getting the ballpark ready in case we have a season. But until then, I was going out of my house once a week, twice a week, maybe, to either get food or to go get liquor for the weekend, because that's the only way anybody got through the last 3 months. But I'm lucky I have my Xbox, so I can play with my friends. That's no problem. Talk to them. When my family Zoomed each other for every important event, as you know, you've been a part of those. Courtney's graduation, we had a socially distant little get together on our front lawn where people drove by and hung out with us for a little bit. But it's been tough. It's the face-to-face interaction is not what it once was, especially for someone like me who works in sales, where I haven't actually been able to do my job for 3 months now. I'm wearing my mask everywhere it is. I think that the amount of fear that people will have once there's a vaccine put out, and even once everything opens back up again, that is undue. I think most of us have probably been in contact with the virus and don't even know it. So we all either have antibodies or basically asymptomatic. Yep. So it's not really a big deal. It's really just more I'm fearful for the elderly population who, especially in New York, has suffered tremendously.
Yeah. Everyday life is very interesting. It's one of those things where it won't change. This might just be the new normal for the next
my dad keeps
next year and a half, 2 years.
This is the new normal.
Maybe even further.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a couple months ago we were all out free as it can be. We were packing bars and stuff, and now all of a sudden, we can't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, when I see people and stuff, elbows, stay apart. Stay apart. Not really. I won't say like 6 feet because nobody really bringing out the measuring tape for that. But yeah, the social distancing. But it's one of those things where in LA, unfortunately, different counties are a lot different, and that's why I took my leave of absence from work, because like my job is in North Hollywood. And so, like, in downtown, for me, everybody pretty much stays at home unless they're going to a grocery store or going to work. People stay home. It's usually a ghost town by 3 o'clock. Highways are empty. When you go to North Hollywood, people are still in groups, don't give a crap. They sit outside the store talking with no face mask. They come in loud, yelling, screaming. People aren't covering their mouth when they sneeze or cough. It's just like a lack of caring from people. And so... and I get some people just don't have that fear, because, they're young and they have nothing to worry about. But let's think about other people too, because, a lot of people have roommates who might, have, health conditions that put them at risk. So you hanging out with your buddies, drinking beer and, doing all this nonsense. You go home and you get someone sick, your parents, your grandparents, your roommate, someone who's susceptible. And then what happens? Now they got to spend, if then luckily they don't have to go to the hospital, but they might, get some symptoms that are absolutely devastating when you read about them. It's crazy. So what do you think is the, let me think, what do you think happens now? Like, do you think if we get hit with a second wave,
I really do believe that if in the next week or so we might see a spike of new cases, and that will cause us to trigger another lockdown of some kind, whether it's partial this time or if it's again another total lockdown for 2 weeks to make sure that everybody is once again COVID free or whatever. I mean, so on March 18th, 17th, the stock market crashed pretty hard to like lows, super low. So I got a lot of money in there now, and it's built back up pretty good. But if the cases go up again, the economy is going to crash again. So I really hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does end up that this rioting and protesting spikes cases again, we'll all be at home for 2 more weeks, or at least 2 more weeks. And nothing else we can do about that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, and I know a lot of people are gonna, people are gonna agree with this. Sports are gonna get hit heavy with this, and they still are. A lot of sports aren't coming back. There's no plan to come back, or some are talking, but they have no way to get the fans involved. And some sports, like we're both wrestling fans. I know NBA, football. A lot of sports rely on ticket sales from fans, from concession stands and stuff. So without the lack of fans,
the tickets are actually a pretty small chunk of change for sport. It's something I can speak pretty matter of factly about. The major league teams make their money from advertising and from their television contracts with TV stations. So the only reason it would be, so let me phrase it, it would be stupid for all the major league sports teams to not come back and try to play, because if they don't play, they have to give back millions of dollars in advertising money to the sponsors, to the companies like Bud Light and whoever else, city, whatever, whoever it may be, right? For their television commercials, for their advertising in the ballparks, as well as give back the TV deal or not get the TV deal money from the TV stations who bought the rights to their games. So they'll be losing hundreds of millions of dollars in money just from that alone. Ticket sales isn't really a huge part. I mean, it plays a big part when you have big stadiums like that, but it's so much less than the television deal money and the sponsorship money. So if the sports want to survive, they're going to have to play without fans. So just so they can keep the sponsorship money and the television deal money coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not that well versed in sports like obviously you are, but I know, like, you know, for instance, I've been following UFC for a while, and I know Dana White talked about this, who's the president of UFC, and he's saying that a lot of sports are reaching out to him because, you know, they're trying to find a way to get around not only the pandemic, but probably trying to see if they can get fans involved, because some sports like UFC rely on ticket sales. And what happens is, maybe they do have a lot of money saved up and equity and all that stuff. But what happens after a couple months, you know, you got to pay salaries, you got to pay, you got to pay for the COVID testing, you got to pay for the stadiums, you got to pay, you know, the employees.
The thing is,
you got no fans
with
paying
no
for
fans,
tickets.
that's significantly less employees you have to pay. You know, there's no one running food stands, beer stands, you know, clean team. Although the only employees you really have to pay are the people who operate the scoreboards and the team, like the manager, training staff, stuff like that. So it's significantly less payroll to pay out, and it's less overhead to operate with no fans in attendance. You have to worry about the bathrooms, you know, and selling food, electricity, stuff like that. So it's gonna help teams survive, I think, in the long run if they play without fans. But it's also gonna hurt them at the same time.
Yeah, especially with the advertising, because I know you mentioned advertising, and I know, I've been to a couple Ducks games, and I know a lot of the advertising, they try to get fans involved. You know, they do like little games, or, you know, they try to get people involved in some way to, you know, raise awareness and get people to, you know, buy some of the products that they're trying to sell. But, you know, with people, people still out of jobs, unemployment still sky high, no live gate. It's kind of hard for people to, you know, to push those. It's hard for organizations to push those advertisements because people don't have the money that they used to, or even if they do, they don't want to spend, you know, their money on something because they still worry about how they pay rent.
A luxury for businesses that can afford to advertise with us. So the problem now with the 25% capacity is that sponsors are going to also want to pay only 25% of what the advertising would have cost them with the full ballpark, you know? So if someone bought a $20,000 sign, they're only going to want to pay $5,000 for it now that we're only going to have 1,500 fans instead of 6,000 fans a game. So we're going to still lose money,
right?
But it'll be better for us in the long run, even to lose. I mean, to bring in some money is better than bringing in no money, you know? So we're going to do what we can, and that's what all these leagues are going to try to do as well.
Right, yeah.
Right now, we're on pace to be the first league to start play if we do get approval, which would be cool. Because the NHL is not going to start their playoffs until July, like mid-July earliest. And then the NBA has a plan in place, I think, to play in September, maybe August sometime. I don't remember. But, you know, we're trying our hardest to get a team to play and the league approved for, you know, all the states we're in. But every other major league team's got the same problem, man.
Yeah, a lot of. I know the NBA had talks about probably starting the playoffs, but and NHL as well. And you're seeing this where a lot of teams are. I know the biggest problem with the NBA is that they only want to do the playoffs in certain areas of the coast. So, you know, the Golden State Warriors probably don't want to go to the.
I think the new deal was that they're all going to play in Disney. Disney's got some basketball courts they're going to play on. I think so. I think I saw that the other day. I think they agreed in principle on a plan. So I think it's like 13 teams from the West and 9 teams from the East are going to fly into Disney and play some round robin games and then go into the playoffs for somehow. I don't know the exact details, but it's something like that, I think.
And then I know NHL has something
It's gonna be
projected about
actually
like
24
16 teams playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, so the bottom 7 teams are out.
Oh, 24.
They're still so they're gonna do. I think they're trying to do 2 sites, one in the east, like one arena in the east, one city in the east. Be a hub for the playoffs where all the eastern teams will play at the eastern hub, all the western teams will play at the western hub, and then once we get to the end, the team from the east will play home games in the east, the team from the west play home games in the west, whatever, and then they'll crown a champion. But yeah, they expanded the playoffs to 24 teams. Now is the plan.
Oh, okay, so that's a good plan. I think, despite how much, when it comes to finance and stuff like that with the teams, this is a good time because a lot of players and teams could get a lot of awareness now. So, people can start building up stars. People will be more inclined to watch, basketball who kind of fell out of it. It'd be a good idea for them to possibly in the next month or a couple months or so to probably start off small, start getting some stuff on TV because a lot of people at home, this is a lot of exposure.
That was my thought for hockey with this expanded playoffs is that this is going to do more to grow the sport of hockey than they've done in the last 20 years, probably. So I'm excited to see what happens with that and trying to attract new fans with the expanded playoffs and whatnot. Just the exposure will bring the league in general to have it on, in hopefully a little more than a month now, which would be super, super awesome. But we'll see what happens with that because it's still a ways away from happening.
Absolutely.
I think the Islanders opened their practice facility to some small groups of players today, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I know LA especially. They're projecting that 2021 will probably be the latest that they'll reopen gatherings of I think 5,000 plus, 10,000 plus. So a lot of basketball teams who rely on 20,000 fans, they won't have that recognition, that exposure. So they might have to downgrade to smaller arenas, which in turn would be helpful to those arenas because now they get a little boost and people the Golden State played here.
It also just costs less straight up to open up those smaller
like
venues. I mean, if they have the same dimensions as an NBA court, it makes sense to play games at there where it's going to cost a lot less to open the building up, But
right,
this is unprecedented times,
and
man.
It's crazy to think about, like you said a couple months ago, everybody was in their New Year's resolutions, hitting the gym, trying to lose weight. And, sports were on a great start. Everything's going well. Then it kind of just all turned to shit.
Like I said in the last episode we did about George Floyd, how this is one of those where were you when moments in life. This whole thing before that George Floyd thing happened, this whole coronavirus thing was another one of those. Like this will be talked about hundreds of years from now, in history class and health classes. This is another one of those where were you whens, and unfortunately, it's going to be the same answer as the George Floyd stuff. But it's right here, we're living it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's and just to bounce back off what you said, this pandemic, I know a lot of people are frustrated with it and stuff, but I think if you use your time wisely, you can do things. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if I would have started this podcast. There's a lot of things I wouldn't probably have been able to do. I've been fortunate enough to get a lot of voiceover audition stuff that I never really thought about. So I think if you open yourself to, probably exploring new ideas and, trying to achieve new things, this pandemic actually, despite
it definitely did, man.
all the negatives about it, it has some positives to it.
I started investing in the stock market. It was honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. It was like I was retired with a pension. I was still getting paid the whole time, and I really wasn't doing a whole lot. I rearranged my room, cleaned it out. So it definitely had its ups, as long as you knew how to spend your time wisely and get stuff done. But at the same time, it also took its toll on a lot of people mentally. Being stuck in their house with their families. I struggled for a couple of days throughout the last couple months with my depression, but I mean, it is what it is. Some of my friends would reach out to me saying, "Hey, I'm feeling pretty shitty. What did you do when you were feeling like this? Whatever." But overall, it's definitely been a roller coaster
Right.
of ups and downs since this started, 3 months ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Mental health is something a lot of people don't realize, and I think that's why a lot of states kind of were easing on the restrictions, and I respect that. I mean, I do understand that's a big thing, and it's one of those things that a lot of people like. To be honest, I've never really experienced depression, so I don't know what it's like. For me, I've always found ways to kind of get out of my mind. I'm fortunate to sit on the balcony outside, and California is always hot, so go for walks. Do a quick workout, just listen to music, and just sit outside for a couple minutes to an hour, to find ways to divert my attention. Because there was times during when this first started where I was doing nothing. I was just literally eat, sleep, play video games, repeat. Maybe an audition here and there. And so now, as I realized, I'm like, man, people still at home for the most part. I have a lot of free time. Let's get creative. And hopefully this is a time too for a lot of people who hate their jobs or have career aspirations to focus on their mental health and explore those options. And like you said, this is a time to learn yourself, learn new things, and have fun with it. Because the stay-at-home thing, it could soon end. We could soon be right back into it. Who knows? But
Definitely.
it's what you
it's
get
like
out
a lot
of
of things
it.
like that. You get out of it what you put into it. So if you want to sit there all day for the last 3 months and do nothing and just sulk about how you're stuck in the house, how you lost your job, whatever, I understand that. I really do. I've been there. I spent 6 months doing that in college, basically. But for those of you out there who, decided to learn something new or start bicycle riding again, like my mom got her bike fixed up and has been riding it around. She's doing yoga on the beach now, whatever. It's just keeping yourself busy and not letting your mind, wallow in your sadness is big. So it's good to get out and do some stuff, or even just do stuff around the house, whether it's gardening, working on the front lawn, whatever it is, painting stuff. I got a lot accomplished this whole quarantine, so I'm kind of content with how it ended up, as long as it ends at the way it's going now, with it doesn't spike up again and we're all stuck back, thumbs in our asses doing nothing.
Right. And one last thing I wanted to touch on and wanted to get your opinion about, and I know this is like a big thing that's going to probably influence the presidential election coming up, but what do you think about the stimulus package and the new proposed one? There's a lot of opinions out there, so I want to see what you think. I'm
a Republican. I have no problem admitting that, but God, did it feel nice when I got my $1,200 check in the mail. Just put that What? Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Did you hear
Republican,
that?
Right?
So you're a racist homophobe.
But yeah, so I'm not complaining about that. I think it's a tremendous waste of money to give it. I'm going to catch some flack for this if people actually listen to this. If they do another stimulus package to people that are dependents, meaning that people live at home still and are supported by their parents, that it will be a tremendous waste of money. But I understand that people need it now probably more than ever, but at the same time it's going to cause some economical side effects that we really don't need happening now. I mean, the economy is slowly starting to bounce back. The jobs report this past week was pretty good, so I don't know if it's going to come to having to give out a second stimulus package. If it does, believe me, I will take the government's $1,200 and put it in my bank account. It's going towards my Get Off Long Island fund anyway. But it's like all things. It's good and bad. I see more of the good in it the first time than I will the second time.
Right, and I think the thing with the first stimulus package, and this was the thing that was a little troublesome, was people were complaining about it. People were complaining there wasn't enough money. Here's the thing, I understand a lot of people have mortgages, some people pay high amounts of rent, but let's be grateful we got $1,200. A lot of people I'm not trying to say, I am grateful about unemployment. A lot of people making a lot more than they would in their day job, and a lot of people are able to save and all this stuff.
I'll put it this way real quick, just that I have a full-time job. I'm lucky to have a full-time job. I didn't get furloughed. I didn't get laid off. I get paid $13 an hour. I'm making about $1,600 a month. To get a check for $1,200 for nothing, that's sweet. That's like 75% of a month's pay right there. So on top of my monthly pay, that's a pretty freaking good month,
Exactly. And like you said, find ways to, use the system. Whether it's collecting EBT. I know a lot of people make fun of EBT, but hey, if it gets food on the table for you, by all means. And hopefully with the next stimulus package, I know they're proposing a bigger budget for, like you said, dependents. I think another 1,200, but this time they will include more people in it. So like if you have more kids, you'll get more money.
Which would be pretty sweet. Also, again, I'm a Republican and I have no problem paying off my debt. But if I could get my $40,000 worth of debt off the board, that would be amazing too.
Yeah, the debt thing. I kind of talked about it in the first episode. I won't dive into it too much, but it's like I said. One of my major points with the debt thing is that even if they do cancel it, what's going to happen is other areas of our life is going to change because of it. So, like, yeah, they might wipe off student debt, but what happens, like, when people want to go get a car loan or a mortgage loan, interest rates are going to fly through the roof because they realize that, the government, if we hit another snag, the government, all they're going to do is erase it. So we might as well get our money's worth while the time is, of the essence. Hopefully, they probably won't pass another stimulus package right now because they're seeing an increase in the economy. Thank you to Trump. I know a lot of people hate Republicans and hate Trump, but let's give the man credit. He's getting jobs.
Oh my God! The stock market was all-time high. Jobs numbers were crazy. It's the guy knows how to develop an economy and a business. That's undisputable.
And thank God we have someone like Trump right now because he is a businessman. He's not a politician. He knows how to use money. He knows how useful money is. And so, everything is not going to be perfect. People are always going to find something to complain about. That is just a given. But the $600 a month, the $1,200 check that we all got, or for some people still waiting to get. But this is all stuff that I don't know, mate. I don't know if Obama would have passed it if he was president during his time. So, I think we should all be a little grateful about, the blessings that we've gotten out of this.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Let's see
I would
what's
never
to come.
openly advocate free handouts, but if the government's going to give me one, I will happily take it. I know you will too.
Oh, I mean, hey, look. I mean, let's be real. A lot of people swim in the debt. A lot of people live in paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes a help, like I said, one of my slogans is a helping hand is a better hand. So hey, I'm not gonna say no to extra $1,200. Obviously, people are always gonna abuse the system regardless. I mean, that's just a given. But hopefully, the stimulus package they passed did a really good job, and let's see what happens. Let's see what the economy looks like in a couple months. What happens with the antivirus or what's the correct word for that? Vaccination, which probably won't come until early next year
for coronavirus vaccines. So it's coming. It's coming eventually, sooner rather than later, hopefully. But so hopefully people who had coronavirus,
maybe if this testing areas are near you who are volunteering people to donate blood, let's go out there and let's try to make this fast and quick because nobody really wants to be living in fear for the rest of their life
for the next couple months to probably a year or so from now, I bet. And it comes with the territory, but it is what it is.
Oh no. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I know even when I do go back to work, I'm still gonna stay away from me. No more handshakes, and for the entertainment business, my livelihood, that's gonna change forever. At least for the foreseeable future, for the next year or two. So I'm curious to see how this all plays
interesting
out.
to see for sure.
But yeah, it was a good talk. I wanted to talk about this because I know a lot of people have opinions and stuff about it. Don't really have a way to talk about it, so I'm glad we were able to. Like I said, this podcast is done to open the conversation and start those dialogues that a lot of people don't have. And so I was glad that we was able to touch on a lot of things that people have opinions about and hit them. So. Very informational, very comedic. The big fruitcake.
Yeah, we gotta work on that. Like I'm gonna introduce myself next time we do this.
This is my podcast. I'll do what I want.
Dude, I'll talk to you later. Be good, everybody out there. Be good. Wear your masks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Don, for another great episode. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Join Anchor. .fm or download the Anchor app. The really good tool. This is how I started my podcast, and hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. And like I said, a better hand is a helping hand. Take care. Thank you, Don.
Isn't it a helping hand is a better hand?
I change it every time.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
It keeps people on their toes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you later. Be good.
Talk to you later. All right. Thank you guys. See you soon.